This is Lorenzo and this is the Training Space Taxonomy video series, lesson number 8. It's on the fourth stationary zone. It's our rings suspended either from our store bar, but preferably in a fixed or dedicated ring training zone, allowing us to do at least 13 of our 50 gymnastics exercises. Let's take a look. Our suspended rings is the fourth of 5 stationary zones that make up our home gym. To the left of our matrix, we can see the equipment in question is the rings. The space, well, it will be suspended, typically from the ceiling in your dedicated ring zone space. But for those who don't have the space, maybe from your store bars, it will allow us to do at least 13 exercises, 13 stability and strength exercises to be specific. Now, before we take a look at the specifications guide for our rings, let's first take a look at some of the exercises that we can do on the rings. For example, for our very first and perhaps one of the most important exercises is our pull-up, which is a dynamic bent arm pulling strength exercise. For our second exercise, we have the front lever tuck. It is a progression of the full front lever or a static straight arm stability exercise. As we can see, it's in the horizontal vector as opposed to the vertical, which is why it's so important for us to have a dedicated open zone training area for our front levers. Speaking of levers, the next exercise is the back lever, which is also a static straight arm stability exercise. For our fourth example, we have the ring dip, an advanced progression on the body dip. It is a dynamic bent arm pressing strength exercise. For our fifth example, we have push-ups on the rings, an advanced progression to the push-ups. It's also a dynamic bent arm pressing strength exercise. You can think of it as the beginner variation to the dip, in the same way that doing push-ups on your knees is to the push-ups on the floor. And finally, we have what I call the chest hover. As the name suggests, I'm hovering my chest just above the rings. It is a static bent arm stability exercise. Now, these are just 6 of the 13 plus ring exercises available to us, which we can classify in the following way. We have in the first category, primary use case ring exercises, the pull-up, front lever, that's part of the row track, the body row, also part of the row track, an exercise that we saw in the store bar video, the back lever, part of the dip track. As for our second category, the rings are the perfect substitute for parallel bar exercises such as the body dip and L-sit. Now, quick question, why is the ring dip not part of the primary exercises? That's because if you're going to start your body dip journey, you're not going to start on the rings. You'll probably start with the parallel bars for your body dips as well as your L-sits. Moving on to our third and final ring exercise category, the rings serve as the perfect substitute for floor-based exercises such as the push-up and the chest hover. Moving on to our specifications guide column of our matrix, if we look closely, we can see that the main goal of our rings is to provide us with open chain, pulling and pressing support, with a few exceptions. As for the minimum requirements we need for our rings to provide us with the open chain, pull, press support we need for these exercises, these are the specs that we need for our rings. In terms of the materials, I prefer wood. You can do plastic, but wood will provide slightly better grip. It's also a greater feel. Most rings will come with a nylon strap, but you'll see that I highly recommend a very specific kind of strap. In terms of the dimensions of your rings, most rings come with a 31 millimeter thickness. Again, that's also personal preference. I like a slightly thicker ring. The straps should be at least 3 meters in length. And as you can see, I prefer using a carabiner as a way to adjust your rings up and down, which you will see it's going to be a game changer. And finally, most pairs of gymnastics rings will weigh no more than 2 kilograms. Next, what's the best way for us to use our rings? Well, we saw that our rings forms part of our ring training zone, a dedicated area where we will train our rings. Here, I'm actually training in the gym because my space doesn't allow for suspension of rings anywhere, but that will not be the case for you. I'm sure you'll be able to suspend your rings somewhere in your home. It's quite common for us to pair these equipment items or accessories with our rings. For example, Most beginners like to have a mat just beneath the rings to provide them with some psychological safety. So you can just take your mat from your store bar and move it underneath the rings. As for our box, which we'll explore later in the series, functions like a step that, if the rings are very high, allows us to step onto the box and get into the correct ring position, such as doing negative pull-ups or doing negative dips and so forth. In terms of storage, well, if this is where we use our rings, this is what we can pair with our rings. Where we will store our rings will be in our dedicated ring zone, but also they are light enough that we can easily remove to take along with us on our travels. Speaking of travel or easy adjustment to move your rings around, we can see that most people buy the rings with the sliding buckle, which number one always breaks and has this excessive webbing of the straps always getting in the way. It's so annoying. When I first saw this, I realized, wow, this was going to be a game changer, because what they use instead of a buckle is a carabiner, allowing for instant equal adjustment of your rings, which also doesn't break and doesn't slip as much. So definitely consider the fixed number adjustable carabiner option if available. Just a reminder that you can put your rings on the store bar, allowing you to do your body row work. However, you will need to go to a dedicated ring zone area or set one up in your home for your pull-ups, front levers, back levers, and many more. So in summary, our suspended rings serve as our primary and secondary or substitutional pull press support for at least 13 stability and strength exercises.